Welcome to Pharaoh's Code, where the secrets of ancient history come to life. From the secrets of Egypt's forgotten dynasties to wonders carved in stone, we uncover the hidden secrets of our past, one discovery at a time. Subscribe and enter a world where time speaks. In the previous video, we discussed how Robert Bauval proved that the layout of the Giza pyramids matches the pattern of Orion's belt. After extensive research into the pyramid texts, he also demonstrated that even the position of the Nile River mirrors the Milky Way galaxy, and that the 7 pyramids stretching from Abu Rawash to Dashur reflect the 7 stars in the sky. He published his findings in an archaeological science journal. Years later, in the early 1990s, after his theory had been released, personal computers became widely available. Bauval purchased a program called Sky Globe, which astronomers used to determine the position of stars at any moment in the past or future. This software could display constellations and how their positions changed due to the Earth's movement. In other words, it allowed you to see where the stars would be tomorrow, the day after, or even 1,000 years from now. Using Sky Globe, Bauval travelled back in time to around 2500 BCE, the supposed era of the pyramid's construction. But he noticed something unusual, something that made him question whether archaeologists had been wrong about the true age of the pyramids. In the 1960s, 2 researchers developed an important theory: an Egyptologist named Alexander Badawi and an astronomer named Virginia Trimble. It is known that the Great Pyramid contains 4 shafts. They realized that the 2 shafts in the king's chamber pointed to Alnitak, the brightest star in Orion's belt, and to the star Thuban. Meanwhile, the 2 shafts in the queen's chamber pointed to Sirius and Polaris. What truly mattered, however, was the shaft in the king's chamber. Their calculations showed that the star Alnitak passed through the king's chamber shaft around 2500 BCE. This was one of the main reasons for dating the Great Pyramids to that time. We'll now see how Bauval used this theory. Although Sky Globe is now outdated, we'll use a modern equivalent to observe what caught his attention. The program we'll use is called Stellarium. It's free and available for all operating systems, including Windows and Mac. It allows you to explore the sky and star positions from 100,000 BCE up to the present day. You'll find a link to it in the description below if you'd like to try it. When using the program, you must first set the observation location. We'll select the Giza Plateau, where the pyramids are located, but you can also choose any northern Egyptian location, such as the ancient capital of Memphis. Then you'll need to enter the exact coordinates, which you can find using Google Earth. Either way, the results won't differ significantly. From the menu, we'll choose the Giza region. It will now appear as if we are standing at the pyramids in the year 2019. Keep in mind, the program only displays the sky, not the Earth, so you won't actually see the pyramids, but they are assumed to be there. Now let's look toward the south. The letter S indicates the southern direction. The constellations now appear in the southern part of the sky. These lines were generated by the software to help identify the constellations. Let's go back to the year 2500 BCE by entering -2500 in the date field. This is what the sky looked like at that time. We can move forward or backward through days and months until Orion and the Milky Way appear before us. This is Orion, and this line represents the Milky Way. The axis of the pyramids is tilted 45 degrees from the horizon. However, Bauval noticed something peculiar. If we draw an imaginary line extending from the king's chamber shaft, as Trimble and Badawi proved, the pyramid's alignment does not match Orion's belt. This means that the builders aligned the Great Pyramid shafts with Alnitak, but the layout of the 3 pyramids doesn't match the belt pattern. There's a significant difference in the angles. If you zoom in, you'll notice a clear tilt in the angle. At the bottom, we see the layout of the Giza pyramids, angled at 45 degrees from the horizon, as we established earlier. However, the Orion constellation appears at a much sharper angle, creating a major discrepancy. In other words, if the pyramids had been built in 2500 BCE, they wouldn't have been aligned in this way. They would have needed to be set at a steeper angle to match Orion's belt. At this point you might ask, what if the three pyramids were built at random angles? Here we must insist that the ancient Egyptians made no mistakes, left nothing to chance, and built nothing randomly. Everything was designed with precision. Every angle they chose had a specific reason. So what happens if we change the date? Let's move the date forward to 2400 BCE. Still, the layout doesn't match. Let's try going further back in time, say 2600 BCE, or even 3000 BCE. Before Christ? Let's now go back to 3500 BC, the year in which ancient Egyptian civilization is believed to have begun in its known form. Yet, nothing compares to it. However, Robert noticed that the angle discrepancy decreases as time goes backward. That's when he began to question whether the conventional dating of the pyramids was actually correct. To answer this, he raised another question. How was the beginning of Egyptian civilization originally dated? He started looking for answers in historical texts. Champollion, the man who laid the foundation for deciphering hieroglyphics, proposed that Egyptian civilization began in 5867 BC, starting with the First Dynasty. Later, the German archaeologist Karl Lepsius moved the date to 3892 BC. Then Auguste Mariette, the founder of the Egyptian Museum, pushed it back again to 5004 BC. His colleague, Dr. Brugusch, then revised it to 4400 BC. Eventually, the date was standardized to around 3200 BC, which is now widely accepted as the beginning of Egyptian civilization, when Upper and Lower Egypt were united under King Nama, also known as Menes, marking the start of the First Dynasty. These dates and estimates were mostly based on biblical texts that recorded the lifespans of prophets and kings. Much of this was speculative, with numbers varying from one scholar to another. Even today, there's a wide discrepancy in dates and theories across different sources. That's why you often see the letters C or CA before historical dates in books. They stand for circa, meaning approximately. This indicates that the date is only an estimate, not exact, because there is no solid evidence to confirm it. They are all just assumptions and approximations, and each book offers a slightly different version. So the real question is, did the ancient Egyptians leave behind any documents about the true beginning of their civilization? One of the most important papyrus texts can be found in the Egyptian Museum of Turin, in Italy. It was acquired by the Italian explorer Drovetti in the 19th century. Unfortunately, the papyrus was broken into fragments. We're not sure whether that happened before or after its discovery. This papyrus contains the names of over 340 Egyptian kings, along with the durations of their reigns. It begins with a period known as the Age of the Gods, which is said to have lasted for 7,000 years. To this day, no one truly knows what the Age of the Gods means or what it represents. If this papyrus had survived intact, it would have been the most important document in all of Egyptian history. The renowned Egyptologist Dr. Selim Hassan noted in his encyclopedia that the papyrus mentions many kings we otherwise know nothing about. The Greek historian Herodotus recorded that, according to the Egyptian priests, Egypt was ruled by 340 kings over a period of 11,340 years. Notice the length of time. Other records estimating the age of Egyptian civilization come from Manetho, a highly educated Egyptian priest who was commissioned by Ptolemy II to compile and chronicle the history of ancient Egypt. Manetho used sacred temple texts and records as his primary sources. Sadly, the original Egyptian version of Manetho's work was lost in the Great Fire of the Library of Alexandria during the Roman era. Fortunately, some historians had copied excerpts from his manuscripts before they were lost. Some of these excerpts suggest that the history of Egyptian civilization doesn't begin in 3000 BC, but goes back as far as 30,000 BC. Eusebius of Caesarea wrote that, according to Manetho, there were three major pre-dynastic periods, often mistakenly referred to as pharaonic. These periods were the semi-divine kings, the followers of Horus, also called the Shemsu Hor, and the pre-dynastic human kings. Together, these three eras spanned 28,000 years. Eusebius himself questioned Manetho's claims, suggesting he might have meant 28,000 months rather than years. In another account, the Sicilian historian Diodorus wrote that, according to Manetho, Egypt's history stretches more than 33,000 years before King Menes. That would mean Egyptian civilization dates back to around 36,000 BC. Other historians have proposed similar timelines, suggesting that Egyptian history could span tens of thousands of years. If we examine the timeline of Egyptian history starting from the birth of Christ and moving backward, we encounter the Roman period, followed by the Ptolemaic period, then the dynastic period, which includes the Old, Middle and New Kingdoms. Before that, various decentralized communities like Naqada and Badari existed without a central government. Even further back was the so-called prehistoric period, which we know almost nothing about. Roman period, Ptolemaic period, unknown ages, Shemsu Hor, divine kings. This is a rough timeline of ancient Egypt based on the Turin king list, Manetho and Greek historians. However, modern accounts often ignore the Shemsu Hor, the semi-divine rulers and the gods, as if they never existed. As we've now seen, these ancient references were acknowledged by some of the most prominent Egyptologists, including Dr. Selim Hassan, Dr. Ahmed Fakhri and others. So, it's clear that we are not talking about some unknown or secret papyrus here. However, when scholars mention it, they never delve into those ancient eras. Who lived during those times? What were their achievements? Where did they go? They simply state these facts without further explanation, just a period at the end of the sentence. There is a clear contradiction between the dates presented by Manetho, the Turin Papyrus, and modern history books, which reduce Egyptian civilization to just 3,000 years. The pyramids, obelisks, temples, statues, and all other artifacts are attributed solely to the dynastic period. It appears that most of the widely accepted timelines established by early European Egyptologists over the past 200 years were biased by religious beliefs. In other words, the Egyptian civilization was not supposed to be older than 6,000 years according to the biblical timeline. Any differences in the real timeline, according to Manetho's followers, might be attributed to inconsistencies in calendar systems or personal interpretations. Undeniably, there are several periods in Egyptian history that we know absolutely nothing about. The true age of Egyptian civilization is not 3,000 years, it extends tens of thousands of years further back. All of this information was in front of Robert Bauval while he was investigating the age of the pyramids. He realized that the commonly accepted age of Egyptian civilization was not based on solid evidence, and that our entire understanding of ancient Egypt had been limited to the dynastic period and just a little before it. In this case, it became very likely that the pyramids were older than 2,500 BCE. That's why their alignment doesn't reflect the current sky. The Orion constellation wasn't even facing the pyramids at that time. Now, let's return to the software program and travel back in time. Let's try rolling back to 3,500 BCE. We align the sky as viewed from the southern side of the Giza pyramids and begin moving further back. Now there's a match. The Giza pyramids align with Orion's belt at a 45-degree angle to the horizon. The Nile River also aligns with the Milky Way galaxy at a 9-degree angle. But the year is 10,500 BCE. 10,500 BCE is the earliest date at which there's a clear celestial reflection between the Giza pyramids and Orion's belt. Robert Bauval's friend, Graham Hancock, was with him during this experiment. He shouted to Bauval about the kind of trouble they would face once they revealed the link between the pyramids and Orion's belt. How outrageous would it be to claim that the exact construction date of the pyramids was 10,500 BCE? Maybe the program had a glitch. Let's try another one. Same result. Even a third program gave the same result, 10,500 BCE. This suggests that the builders of the pyramids encoded their age in a way that couldn't be forged or erased. Taking all of this into account, ancient Egyptian history needs to be rewritten. There is strong evidence that the origins of Egyptian civilization predate the officially accepted timeline by thousands of years. Furthermore, the pyramid builders were not necessarily from the dynastic era. They appear to have come from a much earlier time. The dynastic civilization might have been just like us, arriving on the scene while the pyramids were already ancient history. In short, the first time the pyramids aligned with Orion's belt and the Nile aligned with the Milky Way was in 10,500 BCE. This is likely the true age of the pyramids. In 1994, Robert Bauval published his theory in a book titled The Orion Mystery. The book caused a major stir and became a bestseller in the UK at the time. But academic Egyptologists rejected the theory outright. They refused to even discuss it and accused Bauval of ignorance, fantasy and seeking attention. In many TV interviews, Dr. Zahi Hawass refused to discuss or debate the theory. He mocked the author and said reading such a book was a waste of time. But with all due respect to Dr. Zahi Hawass, how can one criticize a book they haven't read? We've lost so much in this dispute. The debate turned into a personal attack rather than a scholarly discussion. There are no known Egyptian books that explore this theory, except for The Mystery of the Great Pyramid by Mr. Antoine Boutros, in Arabic. If anyone is interested in diving deeper into the theory, I recommend reading this book. Mr. Boutros attributed the academic rejection of the theory to two main reasons. First, it is widely accepted among Egyptologists that the pyramids are part of a solar-based religious belief. The pyramid's sides resemble the sun's rays, and the structures were believed to serve as launch platforms to help the king ascend to the sun and join Ra on his journey via solar boats. The pyramids were built on the western bank of the Nile, symbolizing the setting sun and death. So everything points to a connection with the sun. On the other hand, Bauval's theory links the pyramids to the stars. It suggests that the pyramids being tilted on the west bank of the Nile doesn't represent the setting sun. They actually reflect the stars located west of the Milky Way. This supports the idea that the pyramid builders followed a star-based religion, not a sun-based one. These findings weaken the theory that the pyramids were built during the dynastic period. Secondly, Robert Bauval's theory that the pyramids were built before 10,000 BCE would dismantle almost everything written in Egyptology over the past 200 years. Thousands of papers, journals, books and documentaries would need to be reconsidered, not just about Egyptian history, but world history as a whole. As we mentioned earlier, according to Manetho, ancient Egyptian civilization stretches back thousands of years before the dynastic period. It's very likely that the pyramid builders belonged to a much earlier era, perhaps the demigods, the Shemsu Hor, or some other unknown time in history. Some of you might wonder, why not use carbon-14 dating to determine the exact age of the pyramids and put an end to all this speculation? Carbon-14 dating was discovered in the 1940s and is still used today to date archaeological finds. However, carbon-14 can only be used to date organic materials, things like hair, bones from mummies, or even remnants of wood or food. If no organic material is found, carbon-14 dating unfortunately can't be used to determine the age of an artifact. Therefore, when carbon-14 tests are done, they cannot be performed on stone, only on any surrounding organic material. The renowned Egyptologist Dr. Mark Lehner addressed this in a long interview on his website. He believes the pyramids were built around 2500 BCE. According to him, there is no easy way to determine the age of the pyramids using carbon-14. So, what did they do when they tried to use carbon-14 to date the pyramids? They measured the age of the solar boats found nearby, as they were made of wood, a type of organic material. They also dated pottery that had dried food residue near the pyramids. Additionally, they analysed wooden pegs wedged between the pyramid stones because the stones themselves are inorganic. Results from dating the solar boats, the food remains, and even skeletons found around the pyramids all fell between 2500 and 3000 BCE. But since these findings come from various periods around the pyramids, and because items like the workers' tombs may have come after the pyramids were built, there is no conclusive evidence linking them directly to the pyramid construction. In the Nubian Museum in Aswan, a very rare artifact was discovered, a decorated ostrich egg from the Naqada culture, dating back to around 4500 BCE. This egg was found in a tomb in 1907. If you look closely, you'll notice a drawing of 3 pyramids that closely resemble those at Giza, alongside a river that looks like the Nile. If you view the Giza pyramids from the south, you'll see that all 3 are positioned on the west bank of the Nile and in the exact same sequence as shown on the egg. You'll also see that the river drawn on the egg is wider in the north and narrower in the south, just like the Nile. The identification note dates it to 4500 BCE. The official opinion is that this is purely a coincidence and that the drawing does not represent the Giza pyramids. However, many people, both amateurs and professionals, have raised the same concern about the egg. They insist that it's living proof the pyramids are far older than we've been told. So we've looked at Bauval's theory, the Turin Papyrus Manetho's writings, the ostrich egg, and many other findings not covered in this video due to time constraints, but which will be discussed in future episodes. All of them point to the pyramids and ancient Egyptian civilization being several thousand years older than currently documented. Even though this theory is widely accepted and believed by many people around the world, it is still officially rejected. That means that by the time King Nama united Upper and Lower Egypt into one kingdom, around 3200 BCE, the pyramids may have already existed for thousands of years. We'll see you next time in the video, Who Carved the Great Sphinx? Finally, at the end of the video, add a closing message thanking the viewers for listening and encouraging them to follow the Pharaoh Code channel and watch future videos. Subscribe, like and comment.